Thanks.
Should go up there.
Okay. Morning all, morning to members of the public and staff and board members, the May meeting of the Whangamata Community Board. And I'll start by calling for apologies. We have an apology for lateness from Gary. He will come online later on. No other apologies? Are there any items not on the agenda?
Very on the way.
Okay. Do we move the apology? I'll move the apology from Councillor Conley, seconded by Terry. All those in favour? Aye. Against carried. Conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest?
On the gardens.
So we have one from Kay regarding the item for the item 2.4. 2.2. 2.2, sorry. And any other?
I have one in relation to the fire service.
And from Dave in terms of 2.1, declaring conflicts of interest. So I'll move those. All those, sorry, someone second that. Terry? All those in favour? Against carried. So we now move to the public forum. Do we have any members of the public to speak today? He is not. Okay, we're moving on to minutes for confirmation. We have the minutes from the March meeting. They have been circulated. And I'll move those minutes.
I'll second.
Seconded by Kay. Open for discussion.
Yes, just through the chair. There's a couple of points I'm sure they'll be raised later on around the platform and survey pegs, etc., that show up and as being to be discussed in those minutes. So apart from that, all good.
Action plan. Okay. So I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So we now move to item 2.1. And this is Dave is moving back from the table. This is the application for discretionary funding from the Biomatar Volunteer Fire Brigade. And this is something that we've been talking about for a few years now, and they're applying for funding to assist with their building consent for their new training annex. There's some suggested resolutions there. So I'll put it in order by moving that first.
I'm happy to
second by Terry. Open it for discussion.
Yeah, just a quick one. This has been around for a while, and the Volunteer Fire Brigade approached the board some while ago about some funding support, which was delayed. It's come back to the table, and I think it's a good project and support it. So.
Okay, no further discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now we're moving on to, Dave can come back to the table, and we're now moving to item 2.2. And this is the community gardens. Okay, if you'd like to sort of move back slightly. Thank you. And we have recommendation there. Someone like to move that? Moved by Tamsin, seconded by Open it for discussion.
Yes, just again, I think this is a good community project, and it was held up a little bit last year with supply from Menchik. Now it's done, so support it all the way.
Okay. No further discussion. I'll put that as per the paper. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So we move to, thank you, Kate. Moving on to 2.3. This is the application from the Whangamata Community Services Trust. So I'll actually open that for any discussion before we move into. Anyone got any comments they want to make there?
I think that, just through the chair if I may, that this, is this Dr. Tom? Is this?
No, this is Dr. Thomas. There's another gentleman Yeah, Rob Mokaraka.
Okay, right. Yeah, in light of what's happened recently, it's I can see it's an issue that's if we can support the town anyway, so I support it.
This is on later this week.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy to second that.
Okay, so moved by Terry, seconded by Kay. I think it's a good initiative too, so no further discussion. I'll move those resolutions. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Now, moving on to item 2.4, which is the community grants priorities for funding. So this isn't to actually make any grants, it's to decide whether we want to have any criteria around those grants going forward, or we're happy to proceed as we have in the past. So I'll open up for discussion.
I'm just confused with the report that's attached because the information is discussing a review in 2015. So it doesn't seem like it's...
The review hasn't happened, it's going to be, we're going to do that next, ready for the next grant round. It's too late to get it done this time.
Okay. And then it also discusses that grants over 2,500 are to provide a report to the community board detailing performance. Have we received that for grants from last year?
So they're coming in at the moment. So at the end of the grant year, they have to supply a statutory declaration and prove that they have spent the expenditure as what the grant was for. So if they got a grant for tables, then they have to show that they've spent it on tables and they haven't spent it on uniforms or something like that.
Right.
So they're coming in at the moment.
And that details performance, does it? So when it's a performance-based grant, or most of them are just for actual items as such?
Yeah, so they just send the signed stat deck and with the invoices.
Okay.
That's why I had to apply for the money to be held over, because we just couldn't get it done.
Right.
But otherwise you would have to report to spend the 1,800 on litigation.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, do you provide, just remind me, do you provide copies of these to the board, or will they just go to the staff for checking?
The statutory declarations? No, they just check through us. So Esther's doing those for me at the moment. And yeah, so she basically, there's a few that we've had to go back to because the invoices, their expenditure hasn't actually quite tallied up with the grants. So yeah, all that, make sure that it's all done.
And you'll tell us of any exceptions where that hasn't been provided.
Yeah.
Yes, I think this is a really important policy, and I know it's up for review. And I just note that the above local community grants is an area which is not well aligned to the new purpose of the local government. However, the council supports that under the risks. There is now a risk that this activity is seen as unnecessary and outside the council mandate. Council have committed to deliver on the commitments made in the 2012-22 10-year plan. This is information back there, and they talk about. So I really think this is a really important community policy, and I know it's not going out for community engagement, but I just want to make sure that consideration is given to, just got to find the right area, under adopt a theme on page 28. Organisational capacity building, assessing community groups that require assistance to improve their governance and management structures, I think is a really important sentence in there, and what we're trying to do in assisting those clubs who are finding it difficult to stay, to form committees and keep their financial records intact so they continue as a voluntary group. So I just make highlight of that point. The other one I'd like to just mention is under the option, greater flexibility has been provided in enabling community boards to determine priorities or themes to apply to the funding criteria and discretion by the community board resolution, which is on page 32. So I'm just trying to paint the picture that this is a new idea that we're looking at and trying to support the community groups to stay alive as the volunteers start to fade away, and these clubs are under a lot of pressure to find those people to run them. and have consideration of that into the policy going forward.
So is this the 15,000?
We did put some money aside, but we're going to workshop
We're going to workshop that.
and look at how that's going to be applied for and managed. Yeah.
So Terry, would you like to move an amendment to build that organisational capacity building as something that the board would
Yes.
look favourably on?
Yeah, absolutely. Move that way.
So you want to make that as your priority, which means any,
No, it won't be the total priority, it would be one of the priorities.
okay, so what we're doing here is we're setting the priorities for funding, so if you want to do that now, then that's what you're going to be doing. So the policy, so you're actually saying that you want this here
Yeah,
as part of the policy when it's reviewed next year,
Yeah, included in there.
yeah,
included in there.
yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
So sort of flag to the community that it's one of the things we'll be looking to
So
do.
you're not going to set any priorities for this grant term, but you want that in here when we review.
We could do it for this
Yeah,
year,
we wanted it for this year, because the funding's in the long-term plan.
but we don't want it to be exclusive, so we want to still welcome
Yeah.
other applications, but we just want to flag to the community that that is one of the things that we would welcome. So if we
So
put,
that'll be setting your priority. Your priority set will be this, along with other
Along with
applications.
other-
yeah, we just want to flag to the community that under those wordings there, organisational capacity building is one of the areas that the board would welcome applications for.
And like Eileen's saying, it's a flag, it's not taking the options that other people apply, it's like we could flag events or we could flag some other things, is that what you're saying?
Yes, so when you, I think there was a community board, I think it was this one, I think you guys haven't set priorities before, but there was a community board that set events.
Events is a priority.
And so those applications took priority over all the other applications.
Yeah.
So that's what you'll be doing with this, if you're setting that as your priority, that's fine.
No, we're not setting it as priority because that would mean that it would take precedent. We just want to flag to the community, send the message out that it is one of the things, if that's what they're looking for, we would welcome applications on that basis. They still need to stack up against other applications we may have, but in the past, it's not something that we've tended.
So then it's not a priority,
It's not a priority.
it's just communicating with kids.
Yeah.
It's just part of the application.
Can you prioritise to a section, a certain amount of priority?
Yeah.
It's just a priority or not priority?
It's either a priority or not a priority, you
Okay.
can't say, we
One
want to
of the
see it
areas to be
now.
considered this
Okay,
year.
okay, so as long as that's wording in there, I think that's all we need at the moment, yeah. It's very much quite of a new approach, but it's really supporting those volunteer groups that are struggling to maintain
Well,
a
it's the financial.
good voluntary support group.
So you need to change number 2 to say that the board isn't setting any priority, but then your 3 will be to give notice to the community.
So
Let's take it out.
take 2 out.
Well, the main thing is to give support, isn't it, for the financial and on the.
Well, that's organisation capacity building. So we've got, I'll move those resolutions there. People.
But you still need to say whether you're setting a priority or not.
No, we're not.
No, we can't notice.
No.
And then when they come in, because what we want to do is tell the groups that this is an area that we haven't tended to have applications for in the past, we would welcome them.
Yeah.
But we'll still need to stack up against what other applications we have as well.
So just a query, so where it says we can support projects identified in the long-term plan, so are we able to allocate grant money towards a TCDC funded project? If we chose to.
No.
So then that's not really correct, is it? No.
Align specific existing projects. Well, that's if somebody, I guess it's. But
Like a boardwalk or something like that. You
no,
can't-
but I'm
be more like
thinking more like the
the
community
swimming
ones.
pool.
Yeah,
Like the swimming pool, if we wanted to actually put some more funding into the swimming pool.
So then we do the grants.
yeah.
Through the grants. We want to top, if that was in the long-term plan.
Right, yeah.
Something that's
Or,
been said.
or I guess, like the heritage building where we're going to build the building, but the heritage group are going to put funding towards the inside. Well, the board could choose to do that as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to confirm that when we talk about giving this, it seems really general. Do we need to do any specifics? Do you want any?
No.
So-
No, when we put the ad out, you could mention that in the ad.
Well, Okay, so this report is actually setting a priority. So you guys actually aren't setting a priority, so we need to have that in the resolution, that you aren't setting a priority, but you're going to let people know.
We've got a support package that we're working on.
Okay, that's what it is.
Support package for
I would call it a
applications.
support package.
That's
The opportunity to set priorities.
Work through that to make sure it's consistent with the other boards. Really nice, can't really see that far. But
Okay, yeah, that's nice stuff.
Trying to do here, Rex? You understand it? Yeah, right. It's a bit of a new thing, but it's, a lot of these volunteer clubs are struggling to keep going because no one wants to do those particular
So when are we
financial jobs.
expecting the grants
And
policy to be
nowadays it's
updated?
been going digital.
So the policy planning team will work on that next financial year once they've got through all the LTP and everything. So basically, these sorts of things have just been a low priority because the LTP's been a priority.
A low priority for 6 years.
Well, they've been very busy. Okay, I'll move that. Someone like to second by Kane. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Whangamata motorhome dump station.
Really quick, sent an instant message and called Derek on the system.
Yeah.
He is the report writer. Derek, are you there? Derek, are you there?
Do any other staff?
Yes, thank you, there.
Bruce?
Do my best.
So I've had a little bit to do with this, I think, between Bruce and I, probably.
Okay, so.
Get through it, yeah.
So we've had 5, so I think the board recognised that the current site for the dump station doesn't work particularly well, being close to the children's skate park and the like. And you can see stuff flying across the footpath, and it's also people get dropped off from school there. So we've asked staff to look at various options which may be more suitable than the current place near the rugby field. And so we have 5 suggestions here, and I think the consensus from the staff is that item 5 is the best of them, and I concur with that. That's down near the marina. Can you just bring up that map of the, we'll see what.
So is this yours, Bruce? Are you sort of?
Yes, I can talk to this one between Eileen and I, yeah.
I mean, maybe
I just have a question, for Bruce, through the chair, Mr. Fuller.
I thought you wanted intermaps.
No, I just want the one,
No, the next one.
just one, so the community can see what we're talking about.
Through the chair, I have a question for Bruce. Will somebody who actually knows what a motorhome is and how big they are and how long they can be actually have something to do with this design?
Yeah, we'll make sure they do. So normally we'd work with NZMCA and make sure that they're involved, and obviously they're the, they're the experts in this field, so we'd take their guidance around these things. So
Because it would be great if it's like the new ones they're doing, you drive over.
Yeah.
Should we make that perhaps a recommendation that the staff consult with NZMCA in terms of the design?
We don't want just a hole where you got to put a pipe and everything. It needs to be a drive.
Yep, I understand.
Derek has been laughing at me, talking with NZ.
Yes, we can add that into the resolution. I'm totally comfortable with that. Right?
Well, I mean, the reason why I'm asking is because of our freedom camping sites in Whangamata are too narrow.
Yeah, understand. Yeah.
You need a big turnaround for these.
Yes.
Through the chair, so will the 13 to 16k include decommissioning of the existing? We'll just leave it.
Well, I think we'd want to take it away because I think the issue is the whole point in us moving. So I think that's a good point. We want to take it away.
Well, all you do is just seal it over.
We just cap it over. So
It just has a cap on.
Just as a cap, we just remove all the stuff from above ground. Yeah, so that's easy enough to do that.
So that's
And
where
the
we're
cap as well.
talking about down near the marina, and that's Beach Road, heading up, it's by the roundabout.
Oh, Derek is on, and I'm just gonna share my screen.
You might be driving like that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give him 2 now.
Hi Derek, can you hear us?
Yeah, kia ora board, good morning.
Good morning, Derek. We were just discussing your report on the potential for moving the dump station down by the marina, and the board are very keen for there to be liaison with the NZMCA in terms of the construction, etc. So we're going to actually add that into the resolution that start work with the NZMCA regarding the design of the new dump station.
Yes, so through the chair, so as a selection process, we obviously identified the sewer connections and went through that process first, but then we took NZMCA through each site remotely. So admittedly, they have not been on site, but they've driven through it via Street View with us and had a look at each site. And that is obviously their preferred site. They do have some reservations, but if the board selected this site, then they would come down and work with us on it. But they're quite excited about it, I believe.
Very good.
I was just commenting, Derek, that it really needs to be one of like the new drive over, the dump stations, that you actually just drive over, because then you don't get spillage, you don't get water running everywhere. It actually just goes into the ground, you know, into the hole.
Yeah.
Sure.
You don't have to put a pipe or anything on.
Derek, will there be potable water close by or some sort of facility for
It
that?
has to have a tap.
That's one of their conditions as well, Terry.
Right, thank you.
On the little map as well, the little picture, you can see Derek's a little dotted blue line that shows water, where the water is as well. Yeah.
I suppose the other one I'll raise, it's a very busy site at Christmas with the boating. Oh, is he gone?
No,
Yes.
But I agree with you, that's the best site that I can see that you've picked out, so I support what you're trying to do here. Yeah, no problem.
Questions, Terry? Well, Derek, when we ran through the report, this would obviously get very busy with all the boat trailers, but the team are pretty comfortable that they can make it work on site, so yeah, it seems like the best location.
Yeah. And there's quite a lot of room if they do the swimming.
Yeah, do it properly, yeah.
So, is somebody moved it?
Well, I'm just adding in a new one that start liaise with the NZMCA regarding the design of the new dump station.
Yeah.
As part of the resolution. Can you just confirm, explain to me how these retained local earnings part works, what we need to do there?
What was that question?
The retained local earnings.
So that was so that we could use funding now.
Yeah.
Because there was no money in the LTP for it.
Okay.
So by using retained earnings, we can actually do the project sooner.
ASAP.
And they have no financial implications on the ratepayer.
Okay. Yeah. And the NZMCA have indicated that they might be able to assist with funding.
Yeah.
Okay, so bring up the resolution in, so that can be number 5.
Number 3, if you want, including further design and consultation, including with the NZMCA.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Good point, Rex. Including with the NZMCA.
With his pay.
Put the word including consultation.
Because I suggest we consulting wider than just into the NZMCA.
That doesn't make quite sense.
Instructs officers to undertake further design and consultation with
including, is it?
Yeah.
Including,
Takes it out of the,
and with.
No, that's fine.
Oh, including, that's good.
I promise it will look so good in your minutes, Kate.
Okay, would you like to move that, Kay?
I'll move that.
Seconded by Tamsin. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. So just in terms of the timing of that, Derek or Bruce, what would you see?
Well, after 1 July, because we're heading into next year's budget, obviously. But what's your thoughts, Derek, around timeframes? Obviously, you want to get it done before summer.
Christmas.
So, any thoughts, Derek?
Well, NZMCA seem to be quite keen to actually come down and visit as soon as the board approved it, if the board approved it. So I'll make contact with them. I'm on leave for the next 3 days, but early next week I'll give them a bell and see if we can get them down at an early stage to start the ball rolling.
I think you need to cancel your leave, Derek. This is very important.
Thank you. You got another word.
Very polite, Derek. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Derek.
Thank you. Thanks, board. Take care.
Right, now we're moving on to item 4.1. Okay. This is the lease for the Whangamata Rugby Club.
Yeah.
And we have the report there. It's fairly self-explanatory. We have the report for writers available if we've got questions. Anyone got any questions?
Happy to move it.
Okay,
Seconded.
moved and seconded. Okay, if there's no discussion, I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And now moving on to the work programme, item 5.1. So I'll move that be received, seconded by Tamsin, open for discussion.
Yeah, just a quick one. I'm very pleased to understand the work that's been done on the harbour, and I see that Mr. Price has considered that the existing timber piles to be sleeved. Is that with the new policy? Is that like they've done at the arena?
Yeah, that's similar at Tyra, I believe.
Oh, Tyra, okay, right.
So yeah, so works commenced yesterday, and so yeah, we're aiming for everything to be completed by the end of this week, I believe, here 15.
The one I'd just like to raise is they went down a while ago and they used to stick little cones on top of them so the birds didn't sit on them.
Yes.
But they didn't get the right size, or just a little wee hat on them. But if they could tidy that up, it'd be great at the same time.
Yep, I'll make a note.
Thank you.
Just on the boardwalk,
Yes.
when will we be receiving an updated price for that?
I don't know exactly when we get that date, but I believe that Ross might have sent an update through to the board around summary of submissions that they could be heard this Friday regarding the doc process.
Yes.
So at least that will be moving that forward. So I don't know if the board has seen.
He hasn't received, we haven't received it. He was still waiting to hear from
He
Doc.
might have sent it this morning.
Yeah,
So, yeah, you just had it off the press. So
Yeah, the hearing's on Friday, so the decision before the end of April isn't quite right. It's probably likely to be before the end of May.
yeah. So there's always a bit of a lag on these reports, unfortunately. So when we do them, we were in April, but obviously things have stretched out a little bit. So apologies about that.
So we're in Doc's hands there.
Yeah, Ross has just sent it through about 10 minutes ago.
No, I haven't seen it.
So in parallel to that, are we still speaking with the contractor and getting advice as to where the price is moving?
Yeah, I believe so. I know that Ross does need to come back and advise that there was something around what I think the board had asked what this would add to the cost, I think, the doc process. And I think there was a comment, I think it might be the action schedule around 20,000, I think, from memory.
But now,
just like,
the actual contractor price.
Yeah. So that, like the last update we had from Ross was that he didn't believe it was going to substantially change the contract price, but I'll definitely get them to confirm that.
But with timber shortages and the pricing from now, it's
Yeah.
absolutely going to be influenced.
Yeah, well, we did talk about that around the around the percentage of cost that timber is going up on average per month. And so therefore there was some, I just can't remember the exact figures off the top of my head, sorry, but there was some calculations done on what these delays have added time-wise, calculated out by the percentage increase in timber, and we didn't think that was going to go. So
We haven't.
I think it was 20, but I'm just struggling to remember. Apologies.
You know, it's what,
I feel like
20,000, I
we've
reckon.
had this conversation every meeting and we haven't had
It goes up.
information. And if we're continuing the dialogue with the contractor, at least then we'd have an updated quote with an expiry, so at least we've got some certainty. Whereas if we're not continuing the dialogue, then they're just going to completely submit a new price.
So my understanding is he has been discussing, keeping in touch with the contractor over it.
Okay.
But we don't have the contract on.
Can we have visibility of that?
Yeah, I'll have a chat to Ross and see what information he can provide. I haven't seen his email he's sent this morning, so I don't know if there's anything on that, if it's just about the hearings.
Just submissions.
Just submissions, okay.
Bruce, was that correct, that the contractor is now not available, that we did have?
I'll have to check with Ross, I haven't had an update on that.
Is that Dave Arts?
Sorry?
Is that Dave Arts?
I don't know, it just.
Okay, so if you can follow up and get.
I'll get that level of detail. Apologies, I don't have that kind of level of detail on each of the projects, so that one I need to come back to you on.
Okay. Any questions on any other items?
Yeah, just the reselling of the reserve car parks, does that mean like where Island View and things like that are? Those, is that what you're talking about? The reselling?
No. No, so the resealing is like sealing of areas that are already sealed.
Yeah, well, this is already sealed.
Oh, okay, so.
They came in, I'm just wondering if there's any coordination that goes on, because they came and resealed it, part of it, then they came and put the yellow lines in, and then they came and resealed the rest of it and covered the new yellow lines.
Yeah.
And then I
So
sent them an email and then they came back and they redid the yellow line.
Yeah, so what they often do is they have to do like a two coat, so there's two coat seals.
But they hadn't, there was no coat.
There's nothing.
No, so they did the beautiful yellow lines and then they come and finish the resale.
Okay, that might have been an error on the contractor's part, so we get external contractors in the door.
So we don't have to repay
No, we wouldn't have to pay for that, no, definitely not, if they come and seal.
because I just thought, that's crazy.
Yeah, sorry, marked something they shouldn't have marked.
Yeah.
So we get line markers come into the district and they'll do all the marking that's required at any one time.
Right.
And so whether they, inadvertently mark those lines.
Yeah, they marked the lines and it wasn't finished to see them.
Right,
Sorry to rehash on the boardwalk. So the last communication we received on cost was from Ross, but my point is that he's still working on the engineer's estimate of 165.
yeah, not
which is,
contractors.
I've said the whole way through that I've got no.
You don't have confidence over that.
No.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're reporting against that is a real concern.
There's also the question of timing now with the dock process, pushing it out. It's not going to be done before the 30th of June or completed before then.
No, I wouldn't imagine so, no.
Okay, if there's nothing else there, we've had mover and seconder, have we?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Now we'll move to the action schedule. So, I'll move that in the first instance and seconded by Kate, and open it for discussion.
Is this where we get the report for the platform?
Well, this is where you can ask where it's at.
Well, that's what I'd like to ask, where it's at.
So through the chair, I can tell you where it's at, and where it's at is we haven't done anything on that yet. So we've had to, unfortunately, I am aware that the board is interested in getting a platform back there or somewhere in a similar location, if not right there. But from a priority perspective, we just don't have time to even get onto it. So I guess I need to understand how much of a priority it is for the board compared to all the other things that are going on at the moment. If the board, if you tell me that it's a really high priority and you really want that back, well, then we can look at trying to do it in a different way.
It's not, from my point of view, it's not number one, but we don't want it forgotten.
No, it definitely won't be forgotten.
So we'll stay here, we'll keep asking the questions.
We'll keep asking.
It's fine, yeah. From my perspective, if we're going to do something, we need to do it before summer. So So we've got a little bit of time left, but yeah.
Well, the thing is, if it had been done properly in the first place, it still would have been
Great, we'll move on.
Just the item regarding the boardwalk isn't closed. So,
Let me just have a look.
it's just.
Yeah, it's got
we've
closed.
scrolled past it, where it says that an additional 20k is a reasonable amount.
So I think that was just, I would imagine, I'll just look to my learned colleague over in the corner there, that it's closed because the question was around what cost it would add. It said 20, but you're talking about the wider costs. Of
Yeah, and so that item in particular is the same one that I've just brought up again and keep bringing up, and it's around the actual.
So that's not just the cost associated with the actual dock part of it.
It's the bit in there where it says timeframe.
Yeah.
So the actual delay of the whole project. What impacts that.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, we can reopen that.
And I understand I've reopened it here.
Yeah. And I've got the notes, so that's fine. We can make sure we update that in there as well.
I think some changes I made, and make sure that the board feels comfortable. The next one I changed it to closed and wanted to make sure everyone's okay. Remember, the action schedule is that most times is that short turnaround. We want to clear that action schedule as much as we can, but in that instance, when we haven't got it right, thank you for the clarification. But for those things, if we've got a response to you, I will close it unless you tell me, hey, that's not what we're looking for. So just
Once they've been dealt with, we don't want to see them again on the action schedule.
Yes, it's just when they haven't been dealt with.
Yeah.
And the last item, from memory, this, it says it's regarding social policies. So this is, was when we first brought up youth representation and what that would look like. And I think the discussion around that was that it could be quite an informal thing led by our community board, but how the action item that came from it was that it would be part of the TCDC youth policy, and then what happens is that it became too big a fish, doesn't go anywhere, and now the item's closed. Whereas if we just went back to making it an informal community board led initiative, it might actually get some progress.
I agree, we should workshop that, shouldn't we?
Okay, so we'll put it down for a future workshop.
So we'll put it in for, we'll put it in for next.
Very little money's been put and thought about the health and wellbeing and youth policy, so it's something we should really address.
And it'll be at that workshop where we'll have to probably throw in those discussions about resourcing and like I said, maybe shrunk it down, but we still need people, so I'll make sure that's included. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, nothing else for the action schedule. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now to members' reports. Dave, do you want to start off?
I attended the community patrol meeting, the annual community patrol meeting. Things are going well there. They've just got some new members and that in there, so that was it was good to attend. Just a few points. When we did the parking, etc., for the flu inoculations at the War Memorial Hall, people driving from Port Road to turn right to go into the War Memorial Hall, it's very, very steep, and a number of cars scraped on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
I've put in a request for service, but it is something that should be looked at, because a lot of these cars are new vehicles being a bit low, and they're actually hitting the footpath.
Derek's team, Derek's team did look at doing that because there was the entrance to the RSA as well.
Yeah.
So both of them, so that was a combination of Derek's team and Roading team. We're looking at both entrances. So they were able to get budget together to do the one to the RSA. So Derek and the Roading team were very aware of that other one needs to be done as well when they've got the budget.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good that the RSA one's been done. Because
It is.
Yeah.
It's so much better, it works so much
Yes,
better.
it does. There was also a request for service put in for the helicopter sign on the entranceway from Casement Road there, advising people that it was there and to keep it clear. That hasn't eventuated yet, and it's 2 or 3 months, and so I'll put that in for that. And also the parking at the Waitomo garage, as stated, when we put the broken yellow line in there, that I requested that footpath be put in between the ambulance.
The St. John's.
Yeah, the St. John's
To the corner.
one to the corner, because the guy has just parked his vehicle on the grass verge, and we can't take any action there. But if a footpath is put in, it's advantageous for people walking to and from the supermarket, but it also will mean that he can be enforced for parking on a footpath.
We've asked for that before recently, so
Yes.
it's a follow up on that.
And it's a safety issue because it blocks the line of sight when you try to turn around.
Can't see.
Yeah, it's very dangerous coming out of Casement.
We get something from road team on that?
Yeah, we do have, they're aware of it.
The road team are aware of that.
Map.
And they've done, and they've done investigations, so I guess it'll be just waiting for the new financial year for budget.
It's only about
So through the chair, is there an enforcement issue as well? Like, does it sound like there's an
No, they're parking on grass at the moment.
So
Yeah.
the parking on road reserve, which they,
they're allowed to do?
The guy's been asked
But it's right.
to comply and he won't comply. Apparently he says he'll park there. So the only way we can do it is by doing that footpath and then charging him for parking on footpath.
Okay.
Because there is a footpath to the concrete
corner.
entrance,
Yeah.
and then there's the bit of grass, and then the footpath goes the other side. So it's really only about 15 metres.
Okay.
But he's just,
but yeah, we have seen some communications through the roading team about that. So they
Could
are.
we contract the men shed to do that?
get it done faster.
And the other one is there any timeline for the street light that we approved to go into?
On the corner of Cash, is it up the top of the hill?
Yeah, off the drive.
Cavendish,
First on the right off the
yeah.
drive there. I've been asked about
Chevron.
yeah, and it's actually, it's not on the corner, it's actually halfway down the right away, and that was, I think 2 meetings ago, we discussed that and nothing's happened.
But haven't we spent our budget on street lights?
We've got a streetlight renewals budget, but which is nearly spent. But I'll follow up and see whether we can.
The board has actually asked for a budget to go into the next LTP for the new
for
street lights.
improvements. Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously we used to have improvements budgets, but then with the LTP and the must-dos and the nice-to-haves, streetlight improvements came out across all board areas. But I understand the board submission that you want that back in.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens through deliberations around that.
So it might have to wait till after July.
Okay, and just in relation to street lighting, Martin Road, between Hetherington Road and Aiken Road in particular, it is particularly dark at night, and there is quite a bit of pedestrian traffic through there. And I would ask that gets some priority for some street lighting as well.
Once again, it's all subject to us getting the funding from the long-term plan.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then we'll be able to look at those priorities.
Yeah, exactly. I think most of the urgent stuff has probably been done over the last number of years, but some of these other sites that you're looking for would be out of those improvement budgets that if you're successful in getting those, that would be where.
Especially roads that don't have any footpaths or very poor lighting. It's thinking of Exeter, people walking home from the RSA.
Yeah. It is. And just finally, just thank you to council for the assistance in relation to the parking for Beach Hop. It went very, very well. We got some very positive feedback, although 2 of our phone numbers were put in for any concerned residents in relation to noise or anything like that. We received no contact at all from people, and it did go very, very well. So, thank you for that. It worked out, and it did support our local communities groups.
Welcome, Gary, to the meeting. We're on to members' reports. We're just going around the table. Tamsin.
Just a brief update from me. So from the last month, our GNZ National Council meeting, my position as young elected member has expired, but they're keeping me on now for another 3 months. So I've reshaping what that looks like. Lots of discussions about the future of local government with regards to the 3 Waters reform and the RM reform. And lots of queries from the public about when we'll find out about the long-term plan, what that looks like. That's about it.
Okay, thank you.
They talk about climate change and
That's part of the advocacy that they are doing, yeah.
big changes afoot.
Yes.
Okay, just a few things from me. I've also had lots of discussions with the community regarding the long-term plan. One Lindsay seemed to have been part of a lot of those conversations. And I made a submission last week at Mercury Bay on behalf of the board for our long-term plan submission. I didn't go through each item, but highlighted the main points: the Lindsay Road, the swimming pool, talked about rubbish collection, the spatial plan, etc. It's disappointing that we never seem to have any submission hearings within the Whangamata area, so we always seem to have to go for a long drive to make submissions, but anyway, that's by the by. I'm not sure if that's going to improve anytime soon. Last week, unfortunately, we had John McCoon, who came and spoke to the board many times over the harbour care and their issues with his work with harbour care. He passed away. His service was at the golf club and was very well attended. So John will be sorely missed by the community, and did a lot of great work for the community. And also had a thank you from Menshed for the assistance that we've given them in the last year. That's all from me, so Terry.
Thank you. Yeah, pretty quiet in my area. LTP is being very busy with reading, 4,000 pages of submissions and 800 pages of speakers. So I can say that the long-term plan hearings have been well received, and the submissions that have been presented have been very well thought through. So the board, the council's got some really good discussions coming forward about where they go with those results of that. Thank you for the Whangamata for putting their submission forward, and also the Whangamata ratepayers, a very good submission from them, Mr. John Freer, and for those submitters around town who spoke for their preferred options on their long-term plan. Traffic speeds, I'll raise this briefly. We've approached or talked about the speed coming into town from the northern end and the southern end and through the Loop Road. There's also talk now about a roundabout at the golf club entrance, so we need to have further discussions about that going forward to see where we fit with the community as it grows. There's a new subdivision being started or open for starting up there over above the 2221. So it looks like there's going to be some activity at the southern end of town. The Poetry Hall upgrade, I don't know where that's gone to, but it seems to have disappeared into the wind. Need to look about that, where we are with that. Have you had any comments from them?
That's all, that's property they're dealing with that.
They are. Okay, we haven't heard any more about that. And Beach Hop, congratulations to Beach Hop people. I think it was a fantastic event again this year. I don't know how the numbers have worked out, but boy, there seem to be a lot of people around through that. And finally, a big thank you to staff through the long-term plan for their support and help. And there was many hours burnt putting that together, I'm sure. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Terry. Okay.
Oh, a lot of I was going to say has been said. Dave did that entrance to the hall, which is a disaster. And went to the swimming pool meeting. We're hoping to get our funding across. And the library, and yeah. And also Access 9 has now got 2 lovely steps.
Wasn't there a 17 point?
Yeah.
I couldn't get over that.
That would have been just a standard dot.
Yeah.
That was just disgusting.
For a bag of sand.
That's would have just been a stock standard
Reply.
permit from just like a lot of our reserve concessions are just stock standard.
But Tanya was having all sorts of problems trying to get it fixed.
But it's fixed now.
Yes, it is. It was fixed they were there the next day dumping a whole lot of stuff.
Excellent. Gary, anything you want to say?
Yeah, sorry, I a bit tied up. I had a fairly heavy sentence this morning in the High Court. just reiterate what Terry said about the long-term plan. I had to do most of that by zooming in and listen to some of the submitters who were very good. So we've got a lot more to happen, and as Terry knows, other things have been happening in the greater area, and I tell you. Anyhow, we just move on.
Thank you, Gary. And you're making us all look as if we're underdressed with your elegant set.
Well, I've actually taken my gown off, so more formal.
Thank you. Okay, so that, do we need to move the members' reports?
Yes, we do.
I'll move the second by Kay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Well, thank you, team. That concludes the meeting at 10.